name is Amanda Milberg. I'm a solutions engineer here at Dataiku, and today I have the privilege to moderate a great panel where we're going to do a tech-heavy retrospective about some use cases that were built at two customers, both Royal Bank of Canada, RBC, and Air Canada. And today we're going to talk about how Dataiku was the springboard or the launch pad to getting these use cases into production, but also the crash pad or landing zone for also landing these and operationalizing and scaling them. And so without further ado, I'll invite my first panelist up, Luke, to talk a little bit about Air Canada and the cool things that they're working on.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
So we'll start. I know you're no stranger to a Dataiku stage, but for the folks of you that don't know you in the room, can you tell us a little bit about your role, what you do, what Air Canada is, and your team that you lead and kind of how they work in the broader groups at Air Canada?
Perfect, with pleasure. So, hi everyone. So I'm responsible for the travel, marketing, and loyalty spend team, analytics team at Air Canada. So first with Air Canada, I assume that everyone in the room knows what it is, but actually maybe in terms of number, we're all data people. So basically it represents more than 1,000 flights a day. It represents 188 direct destinations that we fly to on 6 continents. Last year, we've flown 46 million people during the full year. And we have 39,000 employees and 9 million Aeroplan members. So those are all big numbers. And those big numbers make a lot of data. So, and this data we have the privilege to work with within the customer and loyalty analytics team. So we have the privilege to look at the data so that we can understand our customer behavior, so that we can design product that caters to them. And also to make sure that we can increase relevancy in all of the interactions that we have with our members and customers. All of this with Dataiku, of course.
So a ton of data, I assume, leads to a ton of use cases. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about how you come up with which use cases to look at, how you prioritize them, how you choose to devote resources to them, that process, a little bit of use case prioritization.
Yes, perfect, and it's a really important point. The first point is that we work really closely with the business, and I think this is a golden rule. We need to make sure that we work with the business, because any great and exciting use case that we work on, if they're not used, they're useless, right? So we work really closely with the business so that we can understand the business opportunities, and then we work with marketing on our end. So basically, when we have a business problem, we look at all of our analytics assets, think about predictive models, customer segmentations, recommender system, and all of the data that we have available so that we can size the opportunity, so that we can identify the audience and the people that actually could help us solve that problem, and also that we can design a campaign that's going to be relevant to them so that they can help us make sure that it's no longer a problem. So we have a bunch of different machine learning models that we build on an ongoing basis that we maintain. But basically what we do is really simple, right? Actually, when we do marketing, actually what I just said is basically want to identify the right people, communicate with them at the right time, with the right message, and the right channel. So that has never changed. And I've been with the company for 15 years. This is what I've been doing for 15 years. But what has changed is really the data that we have available. We have much more. We have much more computing power, and we have much more powerful tool like Dataiku, which makes our work really, really, really interesting. But you mentioned as well how we prioritize, which I think a really important factor, because we have a lot more projects that we can deliver on. So prioritization is really, really key. And so again, we work really closely with our marketing stakeholders, and then we do a lot of different type of work, a lot of firefighting. Like, of course, there's always emergency that occurs. There's a lot of BAU, but I think the most important thing is really to work on foundational work as well, and make sure that we can scale our processes, so that we don't repeat things that are manual or ad hoc. So basically, I think one thing I like to remember and I always tell my team is that you build once, you use multiple times, so that you don't do again something that you've done in the past. And sometimes we need to make gains so that we can scale in that front, and Dataiku can help us with this. And I think we have a really powerful role as data science team as well, with all of the tools that we have at our disposals. And we need to have the courage to work with our business stakeholder so that we can sometimes stop the car and change the square wheel for a round wheel so that we can go faster and we can go further. Because sometimes we are in the middle of a lot of emergencies, a lot of work, and a lot of ad hoc requests. We need to invest time in those foundational work so that we can scale our processes, automate our processes, so that we can do much more added value work. And I have a good example to show you.
Okay, yeah, I think if we talk about it's important to lay the foundation to build these additional technologies on it, like a lot of the Gen AI or the agents that Christina and Catalina spoke about before. So maybe if you can walk us to like one or two of those foundational use cases that you prioritized and how Dataiku helped you scale those use cases.
Perfect. First, I'm going to talk about post-campaign analysis. So when we're running marketing campaigns, so we work a lot in the design of these campaigns, so we identify the people that we're going to communicate to, that we want to incentivize. But then after we come back and we do post-campaign analysis so that we can measure the impact that we had and make sure that we can assess if we could move the needle or not, and also so that we can get learning and we can test some hypotheses that we've set for ourselves. When we're running post-campaign analysis, it requires a lot of data. So think about all of the marketing communication data. We have email, open and clicks, we have clickstream data on the website, we have paid media data, we have flight searches in our case, and then we want to look also at the conversion because we want to incentivize flight bookings, right? So then we want to look at all of those behavior. And then we want to assess incrementality, right? So did we generate more bookings during that campaign? Did we generate more revenue? And then we also run our attribution model so that we can allocate the bookings to the tactics that actually had an impact during those campaigns. All of this requiring a lot of computing power, a lot of time with our data scientists, and that process was really, really manual before. And we had a huge backlog. So when I was saying that before, we need to have the courage to challenge the status quo, at some point we said to our marketing team, say, okay, we need to hold on, give us 4 weeks. We're going to automate that process, and we're going to run all of the post-campaign analysis, and we're going to remove the backlog altogether so that you can get your insights in every single campaign that goes out. So what we did is that our campaign that was really manual with the data scattered in multiple data warehouses was taking for us 2 weeks to deliver a campaign. It was pretty cumbersome. And then with the help of Dataiku, along with Snowflake, so we brought the data into one single environment, and then we've automated our processes and scheduled our processes. So within a few hours, we can, the most we ran is it's 20 post-campaign analysis at a time, and it took 5.5 hours. So you can imagine that just by saying, okay, we need to stop the car. I know we're busy. I know we want to get those insights. Change the square wheels and put some round wheels, and then we're going to go much faster and much more further. So that's a good example so that we can work with the business to prioritize where we can have an impact, but also make sure that we can scale and automate so that we can get more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dataiku really helps you move faster, but in a way where you're moving faster in like a safe and secure and governed way. So it's like, just because we're moving faster, we're not doing things that are irresponsible, deploying models or pipelines into production that don't solve the business need. And the collaboration aspect of working across the business probably helps with this time saving. So I think it's pretty interesting. I guess any other use cases that you want to talk about? And then I'm kind of also curious, after you build these foundational ones, what are you focusing on now?
Perfect. Yeah, so I'm going to walk you through another use cases that is really interesting because we've been working a lot within our 2.5-year journey with Dataiku. We've been building a lot of foundational work where we've increased efficiency. And now, and Catalina, we heard you. I don't know where you are, but we heard you. So we don't have 100 of agents already, but we are going in that direction. So actually, we've been building application so that we can put the triggers into our marketing and our business stakeholders' hands. So before, actually, only our data scientist team could run an algorithm, like could run a recommender system, or could run whatever models that we have. So right now, actually, we're putting the trigger into their hands so that they can run it themselves when they need it, and they can get the insights that they need, because all of the process could be standardized. So, and then GenAI came in, so we added some GenAI component to our application. So I'm going to walk you just real quick how we're delivering a route marketing campaign. So first, we have a destination to promote, right? So we identify, let's say Miami. Okay, we need to promote Miami for winter next year. And then we're going to look at who traveled there before, we're going to look at who searched for Miami, and then we're going to look at our destination recommender system so that we can identify everyone who looked like someone who would be interested in Miami based on their profile and the thing that they like. So the next thing that we want to do is that once that we identified all of that audience that is interested in Miami, there could be some sub-segments, right? And Miami it's a good one to talk about, because when you think about Miami, we could have family going to Disney. We could have young professional, affluent professional going to party on the beach. And we could also have some snowbirds going there for the winter because they want to spend the winter with the sun. We wouldn't communicate with them the same way, right? So actually we have all of the tools and the data to put that information into the hand of our marketer. So the app is actually giving them a profile, a sizing of this audience, who they are, what they look like. And then we leverage GenAI so that we can get a summary, a persona of those 3 examples of personas that I gave you. That then can feed our studio team where they can use these input to design a campaign that's going to cater to these people. And that's really good, because our data scientists can work on other stuff. Now, usually they would have done that manually, but now once marketing is doing it by themselves, we can work on building other models and other added value work or other application to get to 100 at some point. And one thing I would like to show you is our tone and manner. So this is another app that we've built that our studio team and our copywriter are using, so that whenever they want to write an email communication, a social media post, or whatever an employee communication that goes out, actually it can correspond to the Air Canada brand and the Air Canada tone and manner. And so we've been working with an agency that came with those criterions and all that we've implemented into an application. And I have a little video to show you to see how it works, which was developed in the context of the Olympics. So again, that's an app actually that is really impactful, because there is a bunch of communication that goes out, there's a lot of people that copies communication, and with this tool, our copywriter team is not big enough to be able to guide and help everyone that writes copy. So this one is a really powerful tool to help people being closer and consistent with our brand. And it worked out because he won the gold medal.
No, I think it's great, and I know we're a little cautious of time, so I think we might invite our next panelist on stage. But before we do that, I think it's great to see the GenAI in action. And that was a Streamlit app, built in Dataiku, powered by the LLM mesh, and the ability for your downstream users to interact with what your team built, I think is great, and how we're going to see GenAI be enabled in the enterprise. So bravo to you. We will have some Q&A at the end, so if you have some dying questions for Luc, we'll be able to take a few questions, but we will also hear from our other panelists. So I would like to invite Vincent on stage now. Let me grab that back. Oops. Okay. All right. Hello, Vincent.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. I'll start with the same question that I asked Luc. Tell us a little bit about your role, what RBC is for folks that don't know, and the group that you lead and how it fits into broader RBC idea.
Sure. So my name is Vince. I am the Director of Data Science within the Chief Audit Executive Group at RBC. I'm not sure if I have to tell you that much about RBC. It's a bank. It's the largest bank in Canada by market cap. And we have a lot of people, a lot of customers. And the most important thing there is I'm not in charge of the AI or machine learning or the analytics across the entire enterprise, that is a daunting task, and I worry so hard for that team that's responsible for that. Fortunately for me, I'm just in charge of the CAE group. So for people in the audience that's not familiar with audit or internal audit, you're probably not coming from a finance background, but for the people who are interested, you can think of internal audit as a group of checkers, people who will be checking what's going on within the bank to make sure, hey, are your finances in order? Are your calculations in order? Are you complying with the different rules and policies that we have set out? And are there any problems and in terms of risk, right? And so when it comes to, I guess, an analytics group that is within such a broad team, there's a lot of data coming around. We're not an analytics group that's embedded within fraud. You would get so much depth in that sort of analytics group, or financial crimes, or any of those sort of stuff. For our analytics group, it's actually a lot of breadth, not a lot of depth. And so, if you can imagine, our analytics team has such a daunting task. And so when we began that journey back in 2019, Dataiku was actually part of that journey, right? Our analytics team focused on performing and augmenting the stuff that they're doing within these audits, right? Whereas the data science team, we were really the extra firepower if they wanted to build models on top of the work that they're doing. Today, it's a little different, right? We're not doing a lot of these visual recipes anymore. Our analytics team, pretty strong, right? They can carry their own weight, they can run their own models, and so the data science team is actually freed up to do a lot more strategic projects, right? Anything that's Gen AI or AI, we're doing a lot of that today, and we're supported by a large data engineering team. We have a full stack dev team, and we have come a long way since 2019, along with Dataiku.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like Dataiku kind of met you where you were at from 2019 to today, whether it was exploring with some of the visual recipes, starting to dip your toes into some of the code recipes, maybe eventually looking at the LLM-powered recipes that come with the LLM mesh. It's regardless of where your team is, the kind of breadth of the platform can cover all of those user personas, which I think is an interesting aspect of your group and team and just the journey that you've had with Dataiku. I'd love for you to talk about your flagship use case if you can. So I'll let you kind of introduce it a little bit more, but tell us a little bit more about Raptor.
Okay, so Raptor we actually got the patent for Raptor not too long ago, so really excited. Shameless plug from me and for my team, obviously. And so Raptor stands for Risk Assessment Planning Tool and Organizer. And so when we talk about Raptor, we need to talk about how we look at risk from internal audit. There's always the internal aspect, the introspection aspect of it. When we look at risk internally, we actually have a framework for how the risk is actually hierarchically organized, right? So, at the top of the house, you have the enterprise, but then within the enterprise, you have your various groups, you have your various teams. You have personal commercial banking, you have capital markets, wealth management, so on and so on, right? But then within each of these entities, you have your risk, right? Operational risk, the risk that you encounter in the operations of your business, right? Within operational risk, that descends down to stuff like, IT risk or people risk and so on and so on. But that can be broken down further and measured. So if you think about people risk, what's really a people risk? Is it turnover? Is it your change in headcounts and so on and so on? So these are what we call KRIs. Think KPIs, key performance indicator, but risk, and significantly worse to see than KPIs, right? You have a bunch of these KRIs that you can actually aggregate to your sub-risk level, to your principal risk level, and then to the top of the house, your auditable entities. And so when we built Raptor, we said, hey, we should be able to look at risk more objectively, right? And so that's what we did from an internal perspective. You can actually monitor the risk from a vertical, but then also over time as well to see how it is trending. Is it improving? Is it getting worse? And then this actually gives the auditors the ability to react faster and sometimes react even before, right? They can proactively address some of these risks that's getting worse. The second half of Raptor is actually external risk. So internal is like, oh yeah, things that are happening within us, things we need to take care of right away. External, we often see it as things that are coming our way that we may not have encountered yet or we're not yet worried about. And so to do this, we actually collect news data every day. We have a bunch of classifiers on the back, some of them within Dataiku, and then that actually reclassifies some of the information. And then finally, we take all this information and track it and look at trending, look at trajectory. Has it gone viral? Is this something that is about to go viral? And becomes a concern for the enterprise. And so when you have both of these views, right, you get a more holistic view of the risk that's within and without the bank that we may want to address.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think you were explaining how you went from more of a objective or subjective approach to like being more data informed or data driven, which is awesome. I also think you're really going to enjoy the next session where we're going to talk a little bit about tracking news articles and looking at trends. So that will be interest to you. To Luke's earlier point of you need to prioritize of what's going to provide business value. I'd love to understand some of the business outcomes of this solution. Like you mentioned, it was saving time, or this frees up time to do else, but anything else you can tell us in terms of the efficiency gains or outcomes of this tool and how Dataiku helped?
Absolutely. So one of the big things that you can kind of imagine, like we're collecting all these metrics, KRIs, we're collecting like hundreds of these over time. We're aggregating them per quarter and then per entity and so on. And so there are millions of data points that we're crunching through. For the external news, we have 100, 200 news articles that percolates through our system every day. And then imagine doing all of that, but then the orchestration behind that. And Dataiku plus Raptor actually drives a lot of the data efficiency when it comes to that. It streamlines all that process, all that data is available for the auditors to actually handle. The other part of that is because of the orchestration, you have a significantly reduced manual process. Now, I know in this day and age with Gen AI, it's actually like a big deal to keep humans in the loop. In some cases, you may want to minimize some of the human touch, right? You want to minimize some of the subjective biases that people come in with. You want it to be a lot more, objective. And so with Raptor, we take this, give that data and all those insights to the auditors, and they're able to start making like more decisions or better decisions on resource allocation. Where do we allocate these audits? Where do we focus the audits on to maximize the reduction in risk and so forth? And by doing so, we move from this whole reactive, as I mentioned, reactive to proactive, right? And overall, you have like a much more robust system for auditors to look at to support all of their decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's great, and congrats on the patent. I mean, that's super cool and impressive. I think we've heard from both of you how Dataiku helped speed the time to value or the delivery, whether it was 2 weeks to 5 hours, or you're just saying giving people more information to make downstream decisions quickly. I'd love to open it up to any audience questions. If folks have questions for Luke or Vincent, we'll have some floating mics around, so if you just want to raise your hand, we probably won't get to everyone, but we can at least take a few questions for the remainder of this session. Any questions? Oh.
I have a question. I can shout. Thank you both so much. How do you balance fire drills, the immediate things you have to do, and all this amazing work you've been able to accomplish?
That's a very good question. I think we need to carve our time. I think we need to carve out time and we need to make sure that we still invest some time on an ongoing basis on the foundational work. So let's say you have X percentage of your time on your BAU and firefighting, and you still invest X percentage of your time on the financial, whatever urgency there is. Because at some point, like, we need to work on the real firefighting, the real thing that brings value. It's not everything that is a fire, right? So I think we need to ensure that it's not the one that screamed the most. It's not the one that we really link it back to the value it could generate. And then, like the example for the post-campaign analysis, like it was an easy sell. So give me 4 weeks, I promise, I'm gonna remove the full backload, the full backlog. Right, so that right now they were against give me my post-campaign analysis, me next, right? At some point, okay, I say, well, okay, let's put everything down. Everyone will have everything that they need. Just give us some time, and we'll do it. So it's a matter of making sure that it's a sell, right? You need to make sure that you can prove the value, and it's proving it by itself. But you need to deliver, right? So I think you need to have the right team. You need the right team. You need to have the right talent, you need to have the right tool, the right attitude as well, so that you can do it. But yeah, it's to carve out time on the things that really matters, that will create value in the long term. So it's not short-term value, but it's long-term value that we need to make sure we don't lose focus on.
So from our perspective, and I get this saying from my manager a lot, if everything is on fire and if everything is urgent, then nothing is really urgent. And so, but that aside, in terms of like actual prioritization, we do it from a business value perspective, either a business value perspective or whichever one has, you know, the greatest mitigation to risk, at least from an internal audit perspective. Everybody can, you know, do a lot of these or have all these problems, but which one is actually more valuable? Plus, we also have a very robust and strong team of analysts, and so, you know, the first stop is for us is, hey, go to your analyst. If your analyst can't solve it, you know, you escalate to the data science or data engineering team.
Yeah, and I think your second point is a really nice one, because in your use case, we saw an application of any user being able to go in and interact. So besides maybe some of the fire drills that are more like, we have 100 use cases, which one's the most important, everything's most important, which I feel like we agree with. If you also put more power in the hands of the business, then you don't become the bottleneck of being every single fire drill, right? And so that's super powerful. And we see it across a bunch of our customers leveraging more self-service analytics to ensure that a fire drill is not your problem or not your problem, but rather something that everyone can use and understand, which I think helps. Maybe one more question if anyone has. Saw you, Austin.
Any strategies or techniques that you've found successful in partnering with IT organizations to get the tools and the technology that are new but help you accomplish your goals that often involve sensitive data, confidential data, et cetera, when you're not technologists yourself or in the IT department?
So at least within RBC, we have a lot of tools that are locked down, actually. And so, you know, IT actually is the first group there. We don't necessarily need to partner with them to make sure we have access to everything. We partner sometimes with the vendors directly, but they always go through a rigorous supplier risk management process, right? So are they following the rules that we need them to follow in order for us to be able to engage with them? And so it's almost like a decentralized process. There are a set of rules you must follow, but you don't always have to go through IT, right? IT can sometimes help or help bridge that, but we, in our own group, we're able to do a lot of these things on our own, as long as we follow the rules.
And it's very similar on our end too. So actually we work really closely with IT too, so we test the tool and then we see, actually we provide our input into the tools that we acquire, and we work closely with cybersecurity, with legal, with strategic procurement and all that. So it's a team effort, but we have a huge input into the process.
Yeah, and that team effort mentality, right, is just showing that you need a space for folks to collaborate. on one place, and you don't want everything in silos so that you develop an application, it moves to someone to operate it. If a fire drill happens, they're not the people that developed it. And so I think that collaboration is a reoccurring theme that we've also heard from both of you today. So I think that's great. Maybe I'll take the last question and just say, in 30 seconds, do you have any lessons learned for the audience here? You've both been Dataiku customers for over 2 years at this point. Like, what have you learned? What's your takeaway? Anything you're taking personally into your next 6 to 12 months in your own careers?
Yeah, so one of the big things that I've learned is there will always be naysayers. So within internal audit, their day job is to literally just question everything you do, right? But there will always be champions, and these champions are your early adopters. And with these early adopters, you actually get and generate a lot of FOMO. People see, oh, these guys are doing things faster. They're completing all of their work like 100 times faster. They're being recognized by the executives. Those are the ones that you want to work with.
And I think on my end, it's a bit of a summary. I kind of alluded to that earlier, but I think working closely with the business, we need to solve a business problem because we may have the best models, we may have the best data scientists, we may have the best and cool tools. If they're not used and they remain on the shelf, then they're useless. So it's really a team effort with the business stakeholder. That's really, really important. The second thing I would say is scalability. So no more manual work, repetitive work. Actually, if you can do it once, try to reuse it multiple times so that we can automate your process. It is crazy the gain that we can do if we take the time to do it properly. So that would be my second thing. And again, we link with this one is stop the car, change the square wheel. I mean, we're all busy, we're all doing a lot of stuff, we don't have time, but take the time, it's worth it. So I think those are 3 elements that are really, really important that can help us move the needle and be able to gain a lot more in efficiency. And I think our next step for us is that we're trying to crack the nut in terms of scalability is causal inference. So we in terms of data science, we hear a lot about correlation. We're able to link and find correlation between events. Causality, it's a nut that we want to crack. We're able to crack it on an ad hoc basis, manual basis, but that's the next big project that want to make sure that we can do it at scale. And hopefully Dataiku can help us with that.
Yeah, awesome. Maybe next year we'll have you up talking about that. Well, thank you very much. Thanks to our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause.